Napoleon. One of the most famous people in all of history, known for his great innovations in military and changing all of Europe. One of his most famous battles of all time is what we're going to look into. A summary of the Battle of Austerlitz. First, let's see how impactful this war is, and the context behind it, how it started. We're going to start off with the Third Coalition of Europe. The War of the Third Coalition was a European conflict that lasted from 1803 to 1806. It was fought between France and its allies, led by Napoleon Bonaparte and a coalition of Austria, Russia, Britain, Sweden, and Naples, who opposed French expansion and domination. The war ended with a decisive French victory at the Battle of Austerlitz in December of 1805, which forced Austria to make peace with France and left Britain isolated. On September 25th, the Battle of Ulm would start, with Napoleon's invasion into Bavaria. This would be right before the Battle of Austerlitz started. In the major strategic triumph of Napoleon, conducted by his grand army of about 210,000 men against an Austrian army of about 72,000 men, under the command of Baron Karl Mack von Lingenberg. Austria had joined the Anglo-Russian alliance, or the Third Coalition, against Napoleon in August of 1805. The Austrians planned to make Italy the main battleground and concentrated the bulk of their forces there. On September 11th, Baron Mack led a smaller Austrian force into Bavaria, which is allied to France. He concentrated between Ulm and Günzburg, on the upper Danube, about 80 miles or 130 kilometers from the eastern edge of the Black Forest, through which he expected Napoleon to march. He then waited for the slow-moving Russians under M.I. Kutuzov to join him. Mack expected Napoleon to have no more than 70,000 troops to meet him. Napoleon, however, chose to make Germany the main battleground and tasked the Grand Army to annihilate Mack before the Russians arrived. On September 25th, the first French troops crossed the Rhine River north of the Black Forest, wheeled south, and moving about 18 miles a day, crossing the Danube 2 weeks later, before Mack was aware of it. The Grand Army, its movements effectively screened by its cavalry, moved on Mack's rear along the Danube, and cut his lines of retreat eastward. During the second week of October, several battles took place in which large numbers of Austrian troops were dispersed or captured as the net around Ulm drew tighter. Napoleon forced the main Austrian body to retire into the city of Ulm on the 15th. On the 16th, French artillery fired onto the town, and Mack saw that his troops were in no condition to withstand a siege until the Russian reinforcements arrived. After negotiations, Mack surrendered on the 20th, but the Russians still about 100 miles away. Austrian prisoners captured by the maneuver around Ulm numbered between 50,000 and 60,000. French losses were insignificant. After his grand victory, Napoleon would march all the way up to Vienna. Once capturing Vienna, he would go up north and eventually hit Austerlitz, where he would have one of his most successful victories of all time. In the battlefield, the Allies, the Third Coalition, had the high ground, which was very unfortunate for Napoleon. But he did have a plan. The plan was that on his right flank, he would make it look extremely weak. This would bait the Allies into going in. At first, Napoleon wasn't truly that confident. He wrote many letters explaining and practicing how he would explain the defeat. He wasn't really that happy about the situation he was in, but he knew that he can make the best out of it. The great thing about Napoleon was, even when things were not to his advantage, he would do everything he can to bring it to his advantage. And because of that, he would win this battle. The units involved were the Imperial Guard, the 1st Corps, the 3rd Corps, the 4th and 5th Corps, the Grenadier Division, and the Reserve Cavalry Corps for the French side, of a strength calculated from 65,000 to 75,000. And for the Russians and Austrians, they would have the Russian Imperial Guard, Advanced Guard of the Tsar, the Advanced Guard of General von Buschreden, the first column, the second column, the third column, the fourth column, and the fifth cavalry column, of a strength calculated around 84,000 and 95,000. This would also describe maybe around how many troops they had, but it's hard to really say for sure. But that was kind of the calculated strengths and troops that they had. Around 7 a.m., General Kienmayer, an Austrian general, would march in and try and take out the weak right flank of Napoleon's army. Little did he know, this is exactly what Napoleon wanted. An hour later, reinforcements would come to try and take down the right flank. Unfortunately for the Third Coalition, this was an enormous mistake. Soon, the Third Corps for the French army would come in, and they would heavily assist the third flank, now making it look like they couldn't even quickly conquer it, and giving a massive advantage to Napoleon. Once the first step had come to plan, Napoleon would send Marshal Soult to come in and take out the middle flank. Napoleon was successfully able to push far enough where he was able to secure the heights and have high ground advantage. Unfortunately, his left flank would be penetrated and the town of Austerlitz. Luckily, Napoleon got some of the cannons and would fire there, halting the area. Now he was able to focus on his central flank, and soon he would capture the towns of Blatzowitz and Krug. After a while of pushing, Napoleon was finally able to destroy the central flank, and with that also destroying the Third Coalition's right flank. At around 2 p.m., Napoleon would send his troops to cut off and sandwich the last remaining troops of the Third Coalition's left flank, now destroying them all and making them surrender, and capturing the town of Austerlitz. With this massive victory, Napoleon was able to win against the Third Coalition and make them give up enormous amounts of territories, now securing Europe towards Napoleon's hands. This would be his greatest victory, his masterpiece. This was the Battle of Austerlitz. If you like more of this content, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try and make higher quality content for y'all, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much, and goodbye.